So while we're doing this and waiting for me to get out there, some of you new to the channel may not be familiar with this feature. We haven't done it in a few weeks. But my wife is very supportive, very, very supportive of the channel and everything that I do over here. And occasionally she likes to ask questions of the audience. We call it Mrs. Tiberius' question of the week. You may have seen some of the previous ones in my section over on my YouTube channel. And she does have a good question for tonight's show. So, what are some non-gaming streams that you follow, whether it's on Twitch or on YouTube? What types of other content do you watch over there, and streamers do you particularly follow? And anything you want to share about why you like them, feel free to. You know, maybe you really like the way Amaranth tells stories. That's great. But, so what other non-gaming streamers do you follow? Because obviously if you're watching it for a specific game, it's because you probably play the game yourself or just really like that game or enjoy watching people play it. But if you're watching people who aren't gaming, sometimes people cook, sometimes people paint, sometimes people play music on Twitch. There's all kinds of streams going on. Some people are just chatting, just having a cup of coffee, just talking about the news or the weather. So, Olympus, you were watching a streamer today who was hosting a baking competition starring other streamers, none of whom know how to bake. Well, that would be interesting. I do know how to bake, so I guess I'd be disqualified from participating in that. I'm not going on like, the Great American or the Great British Baking Show or anything like that. Not that quality. Like, I can follow a recipe and I can bake some stuff pretty good. But I'm not like sculpting and building, these artistic things out of it. It's going to taste good. It'll look decent. But, yeah. That's kind of where I just draw the line. I do not have the artistic skills. I can't draw for crap. I can't really build stuff. I don't have that talent. But I can make some stuff taste pretty good. So, you only stream Star Trek Fleet Command. Well, that's okay. That's fine. Occasionally some political streamers. Sure, there's plenty of those out there. Feely Dan, you only watch gaming on YouTube. You watch independent media. And that's the thing, too. There are, a number of different political news type presenters who are on YouTube in a variety of where you are in the spectrum. You can find people out there who are sharing content about things that are not being covered by your regular channel, TV, cable news, because they have very specific monetary agendas and the things and the stories in which they choose to push forward. And there are some more independent people on YouTube who are more interested in getting certain stories out or certain facts out or certain opinions out that you don't, necessarily, you can't put on Fox or ABC or NBC or whatever, or CNN, because they have too much money at stake with sponsorships and those kinds of things, and commercials and advertisers. Okay, so that's good. Thank you for sharing about that. Now I'm curious, Olympus. I'm gonna have to go look this person up. Okay. 824,000 followers. Okay. Well, this is pretty interesting. Obviously, this person's been doing something right for quite a long time. Occasionally it is playing some different games as well, League of Legends, just chatting. But this baking it thing, that's pretty interesting. Okay. For those of you not reading along in chat, that was QT Cinderella is the name of the streamer that Olympus wanted to share. Cool. What do I like to bake? Usually it's just like cakes and muffins and stuff like that. I used to do a lot more with pies and things when I was younger, but I just don't have the time anymore for rolling out the dough and, you know, all that, making your own dough and all that kind of stuff too. So I kind of stay away from the pies. And then, you know, you can buy the pie crust already done and whatnot, but that's not quite the same. Doesn't quite taste the same. So I'll tend to stick more to cakes and muffins and things where just, you know, you're mixing up some batter real quick and then putting it in the pan and in it goes. And then you can make some fillings or custards or things to go along with it. While it's in the oven, you know, working on your frostings. We got anything in the 80s? 74, 76, 81. That dude's kind of stacked up claiming it though, but who is this? Oh, it's that guy. Yeah, I don't like him. Nah, I don't really care about him. I can't say I don't like him. I don't really know him, so I see his name a lot of times, but I don't know if he just did a bunch or not. He could be done, and he looks AFK to me. He's got 3 or 4 ships there. So then the question is why didn't he run his armada? Is he waiting for his buffer to come back? I don't know. But we're going to try it without it. Their products were really funny. They made cupcakes that were mostly puddles. Yeah, if you make the batter too thin or not, it's just going to kind of just run. Ace says you watch a variety streamer who does cooking streams on Saturday where he makes food based on various fandoms, like a Marvel cookbook kind of stuff. Okay. I think I have a Star Wars cookbook somewhere. Everything tastes a little chewy, though. Oh, but don't. Podcast of the Lotus Eaters. Belair only watches Star Trek. Jimmy Jam says on YouTube, like Hood, Mythical Morning that has comparisons and food trying. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we do some of those. So I like some of those ones where people try food too, like the Irish People Try channel, where it was really nice. Some of the Middle Eastern guys trying some of the foods for like the first time, because they were always very polite about how they approached the food and things like that. Like they sort of treated it as like a blessing. So if you'd like give them like an egg McMuffin, they'd be like, "Oh, what's this?" Like, "Oh, it's got this cute little hat it comes on," and it's, you know, whatever, and you take it off and they're looking at it and kind of taking it apart, and you know, then they dive on in to their food as long as it doesn't have pork on it, right? Nothing with the pork because that's religious reasons. But some of that stuff was really entertaining and engaging. Sure. Good Mythical Morning. Ah, okay, not Hood Mythical. All right. Well, I mean, it could be Hood Rat too. YouTube everything. He covers all things Marvel. Keith watches Alex Jones on occasions. Okay. Did you know 75% of media ad revenue spend comes from pharma? That's why you can't trust big media. Well, that's a topic for another day. Cutie's a variety streamer, but the baking competition was the last couple days. Okay. Lloyd was a baker to help pay for school, so you'd like to do that. Awesome. Your wife makes you pavlova when you're homesick. Oh, well, that's very sweet. But don't. Sweet of her to make. Pavlovas aren't usually overly sweet. But that's another one that's can be a little fiddly with the dough sometimes. Do blind taste tests of known brands. Mm-hmm. Pavlova is just sugar and egg whites. What? Maybe I'm thinking of the one with the phyllo dough, which is very, very flimsy and very fiddly. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong dessert. Yeah, that's the one. It's kind of just a thin layer, right? Oh, no. Okay, so these are more like little tarts. And some of them are more like with the meringue. All these ones seem to have meringues. So then, yes, that's going to be very sweet. It's not. Am I thinking of baklava? Maybe that's it. Yeah, that's it with the phyllo dough. Okay. Very, very finicky. White crab can just, yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. There you go, Keith. Okay, so we got that down and done. I think we're just about good with all of this stuff. Well, thank you guys all for sharing. Um, Occasionally when I need a good laugh, I always look at some of like the ultimate fail type videos. Voltron, thank you very much for the follow. And to find your way back to us, appreciate that. Other channels and streams, some of those fails and things like that. Usually, watching people fall down is always funny, or silly pet things, silly animal videos. Those are always good for a laugh. The food trying channels I like. Those are always fun. Clips of TV shows that I don't get to see anymore. Usually some of us like to watch on YouTube as well. Like, particularly, I'm very fond of the Graham Norton Show. It's probably my favorite of like the late night type talk shows. It's a UK based show, so they actually talk about things a little more openly and freely, and all the guests are kind of all sitting on the couch at the same time, and they're sipping a cocktail or two, and they're just sort of chatting about things. So you get a lot more genuine and honest reactions and storytelling, because it's always interesting to see, if you've got Tom Cruise sitting next to, Meryl Streep or somebody like that, and then Meryl's telling, Graham's asking Meryl to tell the story, and she starts talking about it, but now she's like explaining it to Tom, who's sitting there looking all baffled and confused, like, what the hell are you talking about? There's very much more of an interesting dynamic, as opposed to, with Leno or Conan or whoever, Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Fallon now, where it's just them on the couch doing one-on-one interviews. This is more of like a community thing that they're sort of doing there. And, again, because they're British and their moral sensibilities and censorships on TV are a little different, some of their topics get a little more, a little more racy and a little more exciting than some of the things we talk about here. So it's always nice to see A lot of celebrities open up a lot more. So, big fan of that. You love Graham. Yeah, see, exactly. He's fantastic. Good show for sure. Yeah. When we discovered him a few years ago, my wife and I were, couldn't get enough of him. But yeah, we when we moved and we changed our cable package, like we don't get BBC America anymore. So I have to sort of stream some of the clips online, or there's a lot of the stuff they do post from their shows on YouTube. So you do get to go back and see some of the interviews and things that they've done. And get to see stuff that way. Blue Shadow 72 now following. Thank you very much. Welcome on in. No chat show host can do it quite like he can. I should try So Graham when he first started back on Channel 4. Okay. Ace says it definitely feels less like the guests are there to advertise like on. Yes. Yes. They do talk a little bit about like the new movie they might have coming up or something like that, but they're also telling, again, these kind of crazy stories or more interesting stories. And then, just in terms of, Graham himself, his monologue is not very long, which I also like, you know. And then again, because you're watching it online, I'm really not dealing with the commercials, which is also a big bonus. But that's the other thing too. Is like the American shows always start with like there's like a 5 to 7 minute monologue that the host does. Then you go to commercial. Then they come back and they do like a skit or something usually, and then they go to a commercial, and then they come back and it's like, well, we're going to interview Shaquille O'Neal today, and I'm going to talk to Shaq for like 5 or 6 minutes, and then we're going to go to commercial, and then when they come back from commercial, Shaq's gone, and now I've got a new guest coming in, and now we're talking to whoever, and then that person talks for 7 or 8 minutes. We go to commercial, out comes our musical act, and we're done. But how much funnier would it be? And again, they used to do this a lot more in the older days. You know, the first guest would stay, and they would just move over, and then the second person would sit down. So now you're telling a story, not just to the host, but like Shaquille O'Neal is sitting right here next to you. So when you're telling your story and Shaq's sitting right there, and you hear his, big face laughing, it makes the experience a little more enriching and engaging. And I think that's what makes Graham's show so great, is just that group interaction that they all have sitting there on the couch together. Guests talking to each other is definitely a plus. 100%. 100% a bonus. And sometimes they say things that you just totally didn't expect. Especially if they people who have worked together before, too. Like maybe they haven't, seen each other in a while, but like, oh yeah, we did a show together, 15 years ago, or we were in this movie together 10 years ago, or something like that. So they have there's a little bit more of a comfort level that they have too, as opposed to, you know, people from very different walks of life sitting next to each other. Sometimes you might feel a little more restrained, but yeah, so all good stuff.